Hey everybody, welcome to Bookends on the Road. We're here at Santa Fe with Nick, the table games director, Mario, our racing sportsbook manager, and we're just going to have some fun today. We know we broadcast our Bookend segment from Red Rock every week. Jason and I have some fun and try to give you guys some insight, and maybe Steve and Money will pop in once in a while or something, but we're going to have some fun here at Santa Fe and let these guys kind of talk a little football and give us some insight of what's going on at this beautiful property. Nikki, how about from your side?
Yeah, a lot of exciting things going here at Santa Fe Station. We just built a brand new poker room starting in September. Brand new tables, brand new chairs, everything's brand new up by the movie theater. Also built a new high limit slot room with a beautiful bar inside. We got bartenders there from 11 to 1 in the morning. Go get your favorite drink there. We opened a nightclub here at Stoney's. Got ladies night Wednesday night, Friday, Saturdays hopping. And right next to the book, we got Stallone's Pizzeria. New York style pizza, very good. I can attest to that. Eat there every day. Gain a little weight, but yeah, a lot of exciting things happen here at Santa Fe.
I know Stoney's has really been doing well. It's kind of a cool outlet, and it's kind of happening place at night.
Mm-hmm. A lot of exciting things there at Stoney's. It's always busy every Friday, Saturday night. Got bartenders. You got a patio outdoor. We got games, fun games.
We have a little power slap machine.
That's nice. I have to say that I really like that you dress for the occasion with your STN Sports polo on. I think it looks pretty sharp.
Thank you.
Mario, how about from the sports side of it? I know you've got a beautiful racing sportsbook here, a great reserved seating area, and with the championship games coming up and then Super Bowl not that far away, what do guests do to get a seat up here? What's the criteria?
So the criteria for seating up in the VIP area is normally they have to go through their casino host. If they don't have a casino host, then they just come by to the books, ask for a supervisor or ask for me. And then we can, look at their play and look at their what they're wagering, and we can make a determination if they can get a seat up here.
Great. It really is a nice area, really spacious book, a lot of room, great screens to kind of watch the game. I know you get a standing room only crowd in here for big days, and I'm sure this Sunday with the championship games and then Super Bowl is going to be no different. Tell me a little bit about, like, from the sports side of it, what you're seeing.
So what we're seeing is, like you said, especially for the playoffs, it's been immense. Like you said, standing room only, seating even around the high limit area. Just everyone is just, the excitement level has been higher than I've seen before this year. A lot of 49ers fans in the house. They took over the Jets fans. The Jets fans were taking over earlier in the season, but now the 49ers fans.
There wasn't a whole lot to cheer about if you were a Jets fan. After the furthest Aaron Rodgers got on the field was when he brought the flag out on Monday night. Never crossed midfield again, but that's another story. But yeah. I think, I know from our side of it at Red Rock, we're seeing a lot of kind of increased hype, and I know it's still several weeks away, but it's the Super Bowl being here this year. Yeah. You can just tell there's kind of an added buzz, an added excitement. People are kind of fired up about it. I don't know how it's going to work out with these four teams. I mean, you've got 1 versus 3 in each conference. We know that the Ravens and Niners had the bye. They were well rested. And then you look at the Chiefs, who had to go on their first road playoff game with Patrick Mahomes, and they win that game in Buffalo. They're now, 6 straight AFC title games. And then the Lions, who hadn't been in the playoffs for over 30 years, who have played a lot of games in domes over the last 2 months, have to travel to San Francisco. So I think it's kind of intriguing the way it could work out.
Yeah, and I think the Lions are definitely the darling. Everyone wants to. Everyone likes to root for the underdog.
They're the Cinderella story, no question.
Cinderella story. So starting to see a lot of early action on the Lions, but I think the consensus, a lot of people feel it's going to be Ravens 49ers. That's kind of like what we're seeing. Like when we talk to our guests, they're all saying it's going to be Ravens 49ers.
Yeah, that would be a rematch of that Christmas night game.
Yes.
That was kind of a game that started off a little bit towards San Francisco. The Ravens just rolled from that point on, with Brock Purdy throwing the 5 interceptions. But overall, it's such a fun time of year for us. I know in our industry, it all kind of leads up to that big Sunday and the crowds and the atmosphere and the hype. I know that we'll be having those Super Bowl packets with all the props that guests just love. I know Santa Fe is no different. You guys will be probably have them on some different colored paper and be handing those out to the guests. So everything will be on the STN Sports app. But those packets just become coveted pieces of paper that people just love to walk around the property and have, not only in the sports book, but I think in all departments. So really, you guys, come on out. Check out Santa Fe. I mean, Jay and I love taking bookends on the road, but it's a beautiful, spacious property. Say hi to Brent and the Cisco kid, and we miss seeing him today, but we love that you guys came out early and wanted to spend some time with us this morning. Good luck with everything going on here at Santa Fe. Beautiful property. Love all the new additions. I haven't got to eating at Stallone's yet. I'm waiting for that invitation, boys. So I'd love to come out sometime. But, it's exciting to take bookends on the road. Again, powered by STN Sports. And Jay and I are going to come back and kind of dive into the games a little bit. But just wanted to kind of introduce everyone to Nikki and Mario here. And come on out, have some fun, and enjoy it. It's going to be fun the next couple of weeks leading up to the big game here in Vegas in early February. Hey everybody, he's Jason, I'm Chucky. We're back at Santa Fe Station for Bookends on the Road for Championship Week, Jay. It's going to be fun. I mean, there's 4 teams left, 1 versus 3 in each conference. Let's just jump right into it. I mean, first let's talk about last weekend. I think overall last weekend there wasn't maybe any dramatic surprises that really happened. You look at the Lions, who I guess overall are a surprise. Patrick Mahomes was able to get a road win on the playoffs. Buffalo, the hottest team in football, got knocked out. San Francisco got a scare, but ended up moving on. For us, we had a really good Saturday, not so good Sunday, especially on the teaser side of it.
Yeah, and I think if you want to talk about that scare, I think that was maybe the one surprise. There was a lot of money on the 49ers, laying the big 9.5, even 10 points. And Green Bay really almost had a chance to steal that game, if not for the late turnover. The Niners probably aren't able to win that game. McCaffrey with the late touchdown. But I think that was one of the surprising things from the weekend. We did see this Raven team go into halftime, tied 10-10 with the Texans. And again, we had talked about it the week before on Bookends, in that with the Ravens, with the essentially 2 weeks of bye weeks, and the Niners with 2 weeks of bye weeks, with not playing their guys in Week 18 and then having the bye week, that maybe there was a little bit of rust that they needed to shake off. Clearly that was in play for both teams, as they both were down or tied at halftime. And then the big second half of the Ravens, where they really just stomped on the Texans. Texans were only able to muster a punt return for a touchdown, really did nothing from an offensive standpoint. And so I think coming out of championship weekend, everybody's looking at this Raven team. They're the team that seems to be playing the best football. MVP candidate Lamar Jackson really didn't do it with his arms. Mark Andrews didn't play, didn't have to go to his receivers, but man, he was effective on the ground, running the football all over the place, not just in kind of scrambled runs, but designed runs for Lamar Jackson. He had that big game. I think he actually had 100 yards rushing. So as we go into this game against the Chiefs, we'll see if that's going to kind of be their same design. And you talked about it, the Chiefs, potentially this is a surprise, going on the road, him winning his first road playoff game, able to squeak by.
But 6 straight years now in the AFC title game. I think that just screams how good Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are together.
Oh, it's incredible. It's incredible to see what they're pulling off, and he does it in a different way each and every time. Obviously, we've seen Patrick Mahomes, the gunslinger, to Travis Kelce, and putting up all the passing yards. And this is a defensive Kansas City Chiefs team. Mahomes just needs to move the ball a little bit, hand it to Pacheco, be safe, and not turn the football over. And I think for me, that's the one big thing that I look at in this Ravens-Chiefs game, is that the Ravens are plus 12 in the regular season from a turnover differential, and the Chiefs are negative 11. So when we talk about the Ravens are able to get the turnovers and the Chiefs have been giving them up, when we talk about playoffs, if you lose the turnover battle, more than likely you're going to lose the game. And this game, we opened 3 minus 20 on the Ravens, and we've been bet up on the Ravens to 3.5. So we have seen some of the early bigger money on the Ravens, while the ticket count is probably in favor of the Chiefs.
Yeah, it's one of these games where you look at the Ravens, and I agree with you. I thought of all the teams, maybe throw out that first half against the Texans, but defensively they played the best. They really looked like they were clicking on all cylinders. And this Chiefs team, who's not that offensive juggernaut, except against the Bills only averaged 8 yards per pass play, where Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes averaged almost 10 yards per pass play. So I think in this game, defense is going to be key for the Chiefs to be able to kind of stop that Ravens team. Maybe they can move down the field swiftly. And what? You didn't think I was going to throw something in like that? Move down the field and kind of control some tempo in this game. But I don't think there's really any pressure on either one of these guys. I mean, Jackson's had a great year. We know how good Mahomes is. They're defending champs. He's on the road here in a hostile environment. You look at Baltimore, 13-4 at home. They've got 9 wins against teams with winning records of 14 points or more. So they're a dominant team when they start clicking on defense as well. So we'll see if Patrick Mahomes can go in there or not and pull off a win. I was really curious because, as you said, we opened at 3 minus 20. We went to 3.5. I know from the industry side, the number's starting to tick up even more. I wonder how high it'll get before we start seeing some take back on the Chiefs.
I'm not sure. When I look at this Ravens team, I ask myself, where have they had the small hiccups in the season, and who did they have the small hiccups in the season against, and can the Chiefs find a way to replicate what those two teams were able to do? And when I went back and looked, and I said two teams, it was the Rams. The Rams went into Baltimore and lost, I want to say it was 36-30 on a punt return in an overtime, something like that. And the Browns were able to beat them 33-31, going all the way back to when Deshaun Watson was playing. So, you number one, you can't turn the ball over against this Raven team.
The games against the Steelers were relatively close.
Correct, 17-10 both times.
Right.
Obviously, the
Much
Steelers
more
beat
low-scoring,
them in a Week 18
defensive games.
In Week 18 when they didn't play their guys. But if you have that solid defensive front and you're able to stop that running game and not let the Gus Edwards and Justice Hill and those guys get running, and you force Lamar Edwards to not run the football and you force him to beat you with his arm, he has the potential to do that, especially with the weapons with Flowers and Beckham and Likely. But the games that they've struggled a little bit more is against those good defensive fronts.
Right.
When we saw the Rams, good defensive front stopping the run. The Browns, good defensive front stopping the run. Even when you talk about the Steelers played 2 good games against them with that good defensive start to stop the run.
Wouldn't you say the Chiefs are kind of in that mode now?
Yeah,
though?
we're talking about a number 1 defense in the Ravens and a number 2 defense in the Chiefs. So these two teams are playing absolutely fantastic defense, and I think that's why you're seeing the total where it's at, because this week we saw the scoring really kind of explode. We saw a lot of points.
I think we opened at 46 and dropped all the way down to 44.
With a little potential and maybe some sprinkles in the mix and some cold weather. But I think that the Chiefs have what is needed to stay in this game, but you have to ask yourself, what are they going to do offensively? Because we have not seen this Kansas City Chief or this Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce duo that we've come to know over the years do this consistency. Now, they found a little bit of magic last week in that Kelce scored some touchdowns. Didn't have a monster yardage game. Rice wasn't able to have a big game receiving. It was really Pacheco
he's the key,
that was the key. But they're going to have to find a way for Patrick Mahomes to throw the ball downfield and pressure this secondary for the Ravens, because the Ravens linebacking core and their front, I mean, obviously they led the league in sacks with 60 sacks, and second in sacks was 57 on the Chiefs. So these quarterbacks are going to see some pressure, and we have seen both of them have a lot of success scrambling. Obviously, you force Patrick Mahomes into scrambling. I think that's where he's at his best. When he's able to create and do the things that he wants to do and kind of get, not his receivers in just route running mode, but in scramble mode. That's where they seem to be their best. So I think this game is going to be close. The one thing for me is the Ravens have been playing a lot of close games in the first halves and then absolutely dominating.
They make the adjustments at halftime, right?
Really, that defense must wear you down and really control you, and then you let Lamar Jackson and that big offensive line and that run game kind of, all that pressure of having to try and stop those guys. They've been really doing it in the second half. So we'll see if that can continue. But this Raven team, they will be a pick 'em to maybe a small dog. Both these teams on the AFC side will be a small dog in the Super Bowl if we see the Niners get there. But I think that the AFC is very, very intriguing.
I agree with you today. But if the Ravens say, they keep that streak alive where they've been playing teams that are playoff teams and they beat them by 14 points or more and have a convincing win, and the Niners really struggle, I'm not sure if we see that game closer to maybe pick them or not, just because of that. But it's weird talking about the Chiefs and really focusing more on, can their offense do anything against the Ravens defense? We're so used to, since Patrick Mahomes has been in the league, talking about how dominant that offense is, how creative, how they can score from anywhere on the field, how they have long drives, quick score ability. But now it's really about that defense that has really stepped up and played well this year.
The offense, I think, led the league in number of drops from the receiving core. And so for me, Kansas City's got to play not a perfect game, but for me, this game comes down to the Chiefs can't turn the ball over 2 times. If they commit the turnovers, they're going to watch the Ravens walk away and head to the Super Bowl.
Well, here's a couple of interesting betting trends for this game. Kansas City is 11-2 straight up in their last 13 games on the road. Kansas City's 5-1 straight up in their last 6 games. Baltimore is 7-1 straight up in their last 8 games. but the last 5 times that these two teams have played each other, 4 of those 5 times the game has gone over. So we were talking about a lot of defense, yet when these two teams play, it seems to open it up a little bit, but both have been kind of red hot, just winning the game straight up of late.
You put quarterbacks like this on the big stage, they find a way to make things happen. And, that one thing, when you talked about pressure and who's under the pressure, I think there is a little bit of Lamar Jackson under some pressure, because last week we did see him run the football and want to run the football and want to have that huge success. And when we've gone back to Lamar Jackson in the past, when he feels that pressure, he wants to do those things. He tends to kind of scramble a little bit too much, and we all know the way Lamar Jackson carries that football kind of out with that one hand. He has the ability to go make mistakes.
Right.
And so if the Chiefs are able to get that pressure on him and maybe get to him a couple times, maybe the big thing that can change in this game is the Kansas City defense forcing Lamar Jackson into those turnovers, a sack, a bad fumble, and a fumble there could be a big leapfrogging win for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, he clearly might be the team that doesn't turn the ball over, wins this game. Both have good kickers as well. Of course, we know what an advantage having Tucker is, but Butker's a really good kicker. We've seen in the playoffs over the last couple of years that he's a big game kicker as well. All right, let's shift over to the NFC now. So it's 49ers and Lions. Niners, number 1 team in the NFC. Lions, the number 3 team, won both playoff games at home. The crowd was energetic and loud. First trip to the playoffs in over 30 years. It was fun kind of watching the Lions. But you talk about pressure, I don't think there's really that much pressure on the Lions. I think they can be a little bit more kind of loose coming into this game. I think of all the quarterbacks, even more than Lamar Jackson, I think there's pressure on Brock Purdy. He threw the 5 interceptions in the Christmas game against Baltimore. He didn't play that good against Green Bay. Granted, the last 2 minutes and 30 seconds, he was phenomenal. But had Green Bay been able to convert a couple of those third downs where Love just made some bad passes, they would have controlled the clock. They missed that field goal. They probably, as you said earlier, win that game. So I think there's a little bit more pressure on Brock Purdy being the number 1 seed, being at home, and being a good-sized favorite against this Lions team.
Well, for me, the Niners, the big thing was the Purdy not playing Week 18, having the bye week, and I really thought that for a young quarterback, even with all the dynamic weapons that he has on the field, this was a chance to have a little bit of rust and be able to find your time. And make no mistake, this Niner team struggled because this Green Bay Packer team was playing absolutely fantastic football. I mean, we saw them go on the road and knock.
They were the hottest team in the NFC.
They knocked the number 2 seed Dallas Cowboys off that pedestal, and they did it convincingly. I mean, they dominated that game. Aaron Jones had found a new gear. Jordan Love was playing absolutely fantastic with his young wide receivers, and they're a team to look out for next year. I think when we put up the odds for next year's Super Bowl, you're going to find that that's a team that's going to be low on the rank. I'm sorry,
Bears fans, you have to say that.
The Packers are going to be and look like a scary team, and we'll see what they do in the offseason. But that team played absolutely fantastic football. What's even more impressive for me is the Packers played a great game, and I thought the Niners didn't play well, and yet the Niners still found a way to win the game. And when you have Christian McCaffrey, you're able to do those type of special things.
Well, you missed a field goal, though, late.
True.
That I think flipped that script a little bit. At that point, that touchdown by San Francisco would have only tied the score. And then 2 kind of bad passes that Love. He had guys underneath. I think one of them was Aaron Jones, and it might have been Dobbs, where they would have been first downs, moved the chains, moved the clock, and unfortunately he didn't convert. But they had their chances to kind of win that game.
But for the Niners, when you have McCaffrey and what he's able to do both out of the backfield, running the football, Ayuk, we saw Deebo Samuel go out of that game, so that's
a big key.
That might have thrown some a wrench into what the offensive game plan was. We saw Kittle have success. And so they've got the weapons that make it real scary for a Detroit defense. And one of the things that I kind of wrote down this morning, because I was looking at this Detroit defense in particular, in that last week we saw Mike Evans had a big game. Obviously, Tampa Bay was chasing in that game late, having to throw a little bit of the football a little bit more. But Evans had 8 receptions for 147 yards and a touchdown. The week before, in the win over the Rams, Puka Nacua had 8 receptions for 181 yards and a touchdown. The week before that, in Week 18, Justin Jefferson, 12 receptions for 192 yards and a touchdown. The week before that, in Week 17, CeeDee Lamb, 13 receptions for 227 and a touchdown. The week before that, Justin Jefferson, 6 receptions for 141 yards and a touchdown. Now, they won all these games except for the game against the Cowboys, which they lost by 1 on the crazy 2-point conversion at the end. But the Lions are susceptible to that number 1 receiver, and they give up a lot of yards and they give up a lot of receptions. So your no Deebo Samuel means that maybe Brandon Ayuk becomes the focal point for the 49ers in this game because that secondary for the Lions has struggled to cover this number one. So if you have to find a way to cover Ayuk, which they haven't been able to do, and now you're also trying to figure out ways to cover Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle.
Right.
I think that this is a game where we could see Brock Purdy have a lot of success moving the football up and down the field on the Lions, and this game's going to come down, can the Lions stay in it if Goff is able to come back and find St. Brown, or they're able to ground and pound, and I mean ground and pound, get 25 carries out of Montgomery and Gibbs, keep that Niners offense off the field, and we saw a little bit of
did a lot of that with
Jones had some
right.
success.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Lions' game plan here is a lot of Montgomery and a lot of Gibbs, and we roll the clock and we try and stay in this game as long as we can.
I think the one thing that stands out for me with Detroit is that 6 of their last 7 regular season games were all played indoors. Their 2 playoff games were played indoors. So right now you're looking at 8 of their last 9 games they played indoors. The one trip that was outdoors, December 10th, was in Chicago against the Bears. They got beat 28-13. They never were in that game. So you look at against Dallas indoors, the Saints indoors, Minnesota indoors, and then, of course, Detroit plays in a dome. So going outside now, where we saw last week with San Francisco, it was rainy, it was windy, it was kind of ugly out there. How does that Detroit offense kind of adapt to the weather conditions as well?
Yeah, and it's a question mark.
They haven't played outdoors.
They haven't been out
a
there
lot.
They're very often. They did have a game in Denver that they actually destroyed, I think, the Broncos on the road there. But, I mean, this is
not over the last 2 months,
yeah,
though. Right?
This is a unique situation where you talk about that they've been able to stay at home or stay in domes even when they've had to travel. And so all these other teams have been playing in incredible elements. I mean, we've seen these cold weather games, the crazy wind, and the good thing for both these teams is that when they head to Las Vegas next week, they're going to be able to play indoors there. It might be still raining here in Las Vegas when we get to the middle of February, but we won't have that game when we get to Allegiant Stadium. We'll be back indoors again. But I think that the elements play a huge role in this game, and I think that's also a big reason why we see the line where it's at with the 49ers being a 7-point favorite. A lot of the early
there was
action,
some 6.5, and they quickly went back up to 7.
A lot of the early action, early ticket count was on the Lions. And again, I think that is a factor of the Lions didn't dominate the Packers, or the Niners didn't dominate the Packers. They kind of squeaked through that game. And you're building this Cinderella story.
Right.
I mean, all over the country, people continue to watch this Lions team, and you talked about that, hasn't been to the playoffs for 30 years, and you start to get that Cinderella March Madness feel out of it of let's cheer for this underdog to go knock off the world, and it's a great story.
You know you're talking about another NFC North team.
The Dan Campbell story is absolutely fantastic. What this team has accomplished is absolutely fantastic. Jared Goff, who's a Super Bowl winning quarterback with the Rams, to go get traded for Stafford and now come back with the Lions to be able to be in this situation. It's an incredible story.
I love Dan Campbell. I think when you look at kind of a throwback type coach and a team that really embodies their coach, it's the Detroit Lions. Interesting stat too, is you talked about Jared Goff. We've talked a little bit about Brock Purdy. But Jared Goff, the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick in the draft. So I'm not sure if that's ever happened before, where you have the first overall pick playing the last overall pick in the draft in a Super Bowl. And, you got Goff going back. He went to school at Cal, so he's kind of somewhat of a homecoming there a little bit for him, too. A couple of interesting trends here as well. Detroit 5-0, straight up in their last, or 5-1, excuse me, straight up in their last 6 games. 5-1 against the number in their last 6 games as well. So they've really kind of relished that role.
Yeah, and again, they do have the ability to put up points. When we talk about Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, St. Brown, Reynolds, Sam Laporta, they do have an equal number of weapons and guys that Goff can go to be able to get these points. So if you like the Niners and you think the Niners are going to be able to kind of blow them out type situation, you do have to always that threat or that back door of the Niners are winning, and Goff is able to throw the ball downfield and come back and get those guys. But again, as much as I talk about turnovers playing a big role in the game in the AFC, I got to think that this is going to be another key story as we get to this NFC side of things, in that turnovers always play a role in who wins games. Special teams, there's always those crazy special teams plays. And Dan Campbell, we know the mentality, and you talked about it. This Lions team is probably not, hey, we're expect to be here, there's a lot of pressure. we can kind of go on the road and
Be a
play
little loose, right.
that loosey-goose. So seeing a fake punt here or there, seeing a reverse on a kickoff, seeing a flea flicker type play isn't out of the question for something that the Lions may do to try and find themselves back in these games. And the last thing I'll mention in here is that we've seen several of these playoff games, whether it's involving the spread, not involving the spread, but a lot of times it's been involving the total, where the game is a 7-point game, it's a 10-point game, late, 4 or 5 minutes left, and a team is forced to go for it on their own 25, their own 30-yard line, and they don't get it, and that gives up some free points to the other team. And so that's why some of the over-betting in these situations is becoming a little bit more prevalent, and people are betting the overs because late in these games, some of these free points happen with teams having to go for it in really, really difficult situations.
So with everything we've talked about now, let's fast forward to the Super Bowl here at Allegiant Stadium. And I think there's some great, side notes. We don't know who's going to play in it yet, but you think about if it happened to be Detroit and Kansas City, who kicked off the season on Thursday Night Football? Detroit at Kansas City. Who went into Kansas City and won 21-20? Detroit. Kind of interesting side note there. Detroit had to go play in Baltimore this year. The Detroit's worst loss of the season was in Baltimore, where I think they lost 38-6. They got dominated in Baltimore. And then you think about San Francisco and Baltimore, who played on Christmas. Who won that game? Baltimore, in a kind of decisive manner. So I think there's some interesting kind of side notes depending on how it all shakes out. We know Kansas City trying to get back there as defending champs. Let's talk about maybe what we would project out some Super Bowl lines. I know, so 49ers and Ravens, the two number 1 seeds. Niners were a field goal favorite in that game on Christmas. They got dominated. I know we talked about they could be maybe a 1.5 point favorite. I think it really depends on how these teams look. It wouldn't stun me if that game was closer to pick.
Yeah, obviously we talk about projecting the Super Bowl, and NFL did that in their Super Bowl logo early in the season. I think there's been a lot of note that the red and purple were part of the Super Bowl logo. So if we're following the script and we're seeing what the NFL laid out here, it looks like it's a Ravens-Niners. And I have the Niners a 1-point favorite there.
Right.
I do agree with you. If the Ravens look fantastic, and obviously a win over the Chiefs is going to make them look even better. And
Purdy played a horrible game. I mean, 5 interceptions. That would have to be in his head somewhat. Like, the Ravens defense knows how to kind of control him. And I mean, I know it's a few weeks away. It would give Samuel an opportunity to get healthier, but that would be a big piece of it as well.
Yeah, and I think it gives even some more juice for the Niners for me. When you lose that game and now you're going back up again, you've got that, we already lost mentality, and these were the mistakes that we made, and this is what we can fix. I'm not opposed to the Kansas City Chiefs finding their way into the Super Bowl. I know we've seen it countless number of times.
So
I know,
say Chiefs-Niners. What do you?
I don't think there's a lot of people that just don't want to see the Swift at the Super Bowl, but I think it adds another great element to our Super Bowl and our Super Bowl props and everything that's going on there. I think that a Niners-Chiefs, I think the Niners are going to be a 3-point favorite over the Chiefs, and we'll see if that would leapfrog potentially to that 3.5, but I don't think so. I think the Niners would be 3 over the Chiefs, and then if we do get the crazy upset and the Lions are able to make it, I think against the Ravens, I think the Lions are a 5.5, maybe 6-point dog against the Ravens. But again, if they were to beat the Niners and look good, maybe it's a little bit less.
That's probably the biggest spread of any of the games. And again, they played literally their worst game of the year and got beat decisively in that game against Baltimore, 38-6.
Yeah, and if they're able to pull the upset here, though, then you have to continue to. That Cinderella story is really alive, and I think you're going to get a lot of Detroit money, going for that big underdog story. And then I think the Chiefs over the Lions, which obviously beat both dogs. I think the Chiefs are a 3-point favorite over the Lions in Super Bowl.
Again, depending on how they look, but I mean, can you imagine on the opening kickoff game again on that Thursday night, Chiefs-Lions, where I think the Chiefs were a 6.5, 7-point favorite. I think they opened 7. It came down a little bit, but finishing off with that same matchup and only a 3-point favorite would be a little bit intriguing. So there's a lot to kind of digest, guys. I mean, check out the app, all the props, all the bet builder, same game props, live. Everything on the app right now for these playoff games, and then leading into the Super Bowl. As we mentioned on the first segment, we'll have that huge prop packet out that everybody loves and likes to have fun with. So we're not that far away from having, a Super Bowl in Vegas. You can already kind of feel that vibe and that excitement and that buzz that, hey, the Super Bowl's here. What's it going to be like in Vegas?
Well, I can tell you what it's going to be like. It's going to be great at Station Casinos because we are already working through all the prep work and everything to make your stay, your wagering experience, everything that we have to control from a Super Bowl standpoint as easy and quickly as possible at Station Casinos. Number one, it's on the app. Obviously, you'll have all the wagering, all the props, everything that you can do on the app. The ability to deposit money through the funding options or here in the book. We're going to make it quick and easy. You have separate lines to be able to deposit your funds. We've got everybody set up. The windows will be at full-blown capacity to be able to write your tickets, the line queues, the prop sheets. We are doing everything we can to prepare to make the ease of you coming in to be able to make your wagers, make your props.
Expanded
deposit,
hours, yeah.
Use the kiosks, all the facets, all the books will be ready, prepared to take your Super Bowl wagering and get a test run, play the AFC, play the NFC championships, and obviously, when we're on a road in a place like this at Santa Fe, again, you can somewhat see the awesome screens behind us. So whether it's Red Rock, Santa Fe, GVR, Palace, the books are ready.
Durango, Sunset, Boulder, our wildfire properties.
Ready to put on an incredible show for you for both the championship weekend and Super Bowl weekend.
As you guys can tell, we're not excited at all. It's just another Super Bowl. We're not excited. No, we're super excited about it. It's going to be fun with it here. There's so many kind of cool features and great things going on. And as Jay mentioned, great time to get signed up for STN Sports. We really enjoyed our stay here at Santa Fe Station. Love taking bookends on the road. We'll be going to some of our other properties over the next several months as well, kind of having some fun through the end of football season and as we lead into March Madness. So you guys, again, come on out, enjoy everything we have to offer. We know it's a fun time with Super Bowl, but hey, the sportsbook can be in the palm of your hand with STN Sports. For Jason, I'm Chucky. We're at Santa Fe Station. Good luck, you guys. We'll see you soon.